This is The Rundown, your weekly news and review from Western Mass.
Rundown!
I'm Carrie Saldo. It's Friday, May 29th. Our Rundowners this week, Dave Eisenstadter, the state editor for MassLive, former state senator and senior counsel at WilmerHale, Eric Lesser, and with the Springfield Republican Newspaper, Aprell May Munford. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining our YouTube live stream this morning. If you have thoughts, you can email therundown@nepm.org. Some broader context for the week's news. Several national news outlets reported this morning that U.S. officials say that they're closing in on an arrangement for a 60-day ceasefire and potentially reopen the Strait of Hormuz. This, after this week, we're entering the third month of the war since the United States attacked and Israel attacked Iran on February 28th. And from the files of the bronze medal that I doubt anyone wants here in Massachusetts, a report released this week that found residents spend the third highest amount in the nation on household bills. We're going to talk now about Juliet Schulman's Hall reporting from MassLive. Dave, I think you were an editor on this piece. Inside the demise of two closing Massachusetts colleges as they tried to survive. As I said, you edited this, and there was really some big advice for students and families in this reporting. Families rarely fully consider the financial health of a college or a university before committing their student to attend. I know my family didn't. We looked at a lot of things. We kicked a lot of tires, but that wasn't one of them. But they really should. What are some of the tips that Juliet heard?
Yeah, well, so, we had two colleges closed just in the last few weeks here, Hampshire College and Anna Maria College in Paxton and Central Mass. And just first off, the pressures on these colleges are really increasing. You've got what's called the enrollment cliff, which is fewer U.S.-born students that are applying to college. And we've got less student immigration, in part because of federal policy. There's also a lot of skepticism over the value of a degree with constantly increasing tuition. So we've had colleges closing. We're going to continue to have colleges closing. So your question, what to watch? So one of the experts, these colleges, they're on these certain financial pillars. One of them is their endowment. Anna Maria College, they have a relatively small endowment, $5.8 million. It went down to $1.4 million in one single year. So that's a major red flag when one of the experts that spoke to Juliet called that robbing the piggy bank.
Mm-hmm. Some colleges will use the endowment to help make ends meet occasionally, but it's not something that if it's done consistently, that's a real red flag.
What they say is you take 5%, that's okay. When you're taking over 50%, that's not okay. Hampshire has been in trouble for a while. Their growing debt is at about $25 million at this point. They were trying to sell off some of their land. Another red flag if you see a college engaged in that. When you're watching the news about these colleges and they're instituting layoffs, when they're cutting faculty benefits, and then also enrollment, which is another financial pillar that these colleges are dependent on. When they're missing their enrollment goals, that's a red flag. And when they're offering these deals that maybe can seem too good to be true, major financial aid, free tuition, if they're pivoting to athletics, those are all can be warning signs that a college is not in good financial health.
Athletics often are big money makers for college, but also means a ton of money you're going to have to spend to recruit talent, bring in coaches, the facilities that these need. Aprell May Munford.
I was going to say low enrollment to schools is like kryptonite to Superman. Like that is the biggest issue. And we see the same issue in charter schools and in private schools. They have to sit down with real strategic experts to understand, to attract and retain students in careers that they want to be in and things that they want to do in the future. I think we're thinking about how are we doing school differently. And we see that in Springfield with the Portrait of a Graduate, what they're able to do and what they can do, and then all the trades that are picking up after post-pandemic.
Is this a fair thing to ask of families, Eric Lesser? All of the burdens, families are working hard to get students to college. And oh, by the way, also you have to vet the financial the health of the institution you're considering attending. Is that fair?
Well, I don't know how much fair is a part of the equation in anything in life, but no, it's obviously not fair. I mean, the bargain always was that the student paid tuition, the student showed up, got their diploma, and that piece of paper, that diploma, was essentially a certificate that lasted their entire career. So the way you would usually think about a college education is of course it was the 2 years or 4 years that you were enrolled in the program, but it was also the 40 years or even 50 or 60 years after that that you were using and calling upon that credential for your job. And that certainly is less effective when the school closes or doesn't last, more than a few years or even a few decades past when you went. So this is going to present a really profound policy challenge for the state. This has been a slow-moving train wreck, essentially, for several years. The canary in the coal mine was really Mount Ida College, which was 7 years ago.
2018, I think it was, yeah.
I was in the legislature then when we passed a law to try to increase the amount of information sharing that schools were required to give families so that parents and families could make these decisions. But the trend is unmistakable. The demographics are exactly right. The Northeast and Western Mass in particular have an aging population, which exacerbates that national trend. And the biggest challenge for these smaller private schools is the value proposition is no longer there for families. $150,000, $200,000, $300,000 in debt for a degree that might not actually give you a wage premium over the trades or over alternative training platforms. Why would somebody do that?
Yeah.
Right? And that's really on the schools to reformulate their offerings for the 21st century here to provide real value to people. And if they don't do that, many, many more schools are going to close.
Kirk Carapezza for GBH News reported this week that one way some colleges are working to sort of build back trust is this idea of cost transparency. A new survey released this month by the Strata Education Foundation found nearly 70% of college students struggle to calculate the cost of attendance, Carapezza reported. Only 32% of students and their parents said the financial aid process was straightforward. It was a tangled mess when I did it 20-something years ago. Or that their college made it easy to understand the final price tag. He said colleges are increasingly treating affordability as a recruitment strategy. Some schools are simplifying financial aid offers. Others are locking in tuition rates, so you're guaranteed a certain rate over the course of your entire time there. So I think we're really seeing now this is the new way to potentially get a competitive edge.
There's also a mission that I think some of the students that Juliet had interviewed were aware of these red flags at Hampshire and Anna Maria, but they were still attracted to that mission of, for Anna Maria, it was service-oriented, going into a service-oriented career. At Hampshire, it's the offer of a unique education experience. So some people were willing to look past it, but the consequences really are there for the students if their college closes. Juliet cited this 2022 report that said if your college closes, you're only half as likely to finish your degree. So you might not even get that piece of paper you were talking about. It's hard to transfer. You might have to repeat years of college because not all of your credits transfer. And one thing that Hampshire is doing that is not even happening at Anna Maria is that they're offering a rushed final semester with potentially limited resources. So there's no real guarantees about what faculty you're going to be able to stay on or what amenities and services are going to be available for students.
And also for Hampshire College, I understand that because they are part of the 5-college consortium here in Western Massachusetts, a number of those other colleges are saying, come apply to us. We're going to help transfer. We're going to make transferring seamless. So hopefully that holds true. Very quickly, Eric.
Yeah, the colleges, will hopefully step up the surrounding schools and help these students. That certainly happened in the Mount Ida case with UMass stepping in. But, just zooming out here, I foresee this getting much worse. And part of the reason is because for 2 generations, really, these schools have wired themselves to not think about cost. And part of that is because of how the loans were structured. The deal had been The student signs on the dotted line. They don't have to pay necessarily up front for the service that they're getting. They then are committed for 10, 15, 20, 25 years of massive loan exposure that students often and families don't often totally understand when they're signing on that dotted line. And the schools started to compete for all kinds of sort of high-end or esoteric offerings that weren't really grounded in actual employment ability. The loan system is changing. Interest rates are up. The whole world with AI and with how employment works is dramatically shifting. And they're going to have to just very fundamentally change how the higher education system is structured to really focus much more on value.
And if you're a student now trying to make heads or tails of this, Carapezza pointed out in his reporting, there's an online tool that helps you calculate the true cost, and it's called myintuition.org. We'll have a link to it in our show notes. All right, a headline. After success of fare-free transit, what's next for the PVTA? This was reported by Hayden Steinman and Addison Allred for the Shoestring, quoting here, since eliminating fares in 2024 as part of a statewide tri-transit initiative, a program backed by the $30 million of state funding to expand access and increase ridership across the state's 15 regional transit authorities. The PVTA has seen ridership increase and the system usage rebound to pre-pandemic levels. This tri-transit initiative is going on. It's been extended through 2026. Aprell, for you, when you were looking at this reporting, what did you think that we've rebounded to pre-pandemic levels of ridership?
I think it's great as of now. Like, my mother and my niece really use the transit system, especially because it was free, especially when my niece, she's from North Carolina, so her sisters and brothers came and she was able to take them places where she wouldn't have been able to do it. But when I was reading the piece, something came to mind. I live in Forest Park. I have a car. There's bus stops everywhere. But there was a time where I was staying with my mom, and there's a bus stop there, but it's at the Eastville Mall. And she lives in an area where it would take me 15 minutes. Her, it would be an hour. And she's one of the low-income people that really now need to rely on it because she now has a rare condition and she's not working anymore. And so I worry about her getting transportation or getting to even the bus stop to get to her appointments and things like that. And I'm my only sibling that lives here, so I could see like how it's going to be difficult for our family go forward, especially now that she doesn't have like all the resources and access to rides.
And I think that gets to the question of kind of what's next now that the ridership is there, looking at streamlining routes, looking at making it more convenient. I mean, an hour-long wait between bus routes is just, if you're trying to get to a job on time, that's a great recipe for losing a job, right? An employer may not be super flexible. Looking at numbers, 55% of PVTA riders are living at or below the federal poverty line. Nearly 70% reporting that they have no other way to make their trips, that this is a very critical service for them. And roughly 54% of residents in the PVTA's member communities live within walking distance of service. So challenges remain. Dave Eisenstadter, what's on your mind here?
Yeah, those are really compelling numbers to really justify the
expense,
the
cost,
the investment really
Yeah.
In this. I mean, this is a service that serves lower income people, and you are truly offering that service. And if you want more riders, you need to make riding it more enticing, and Fare Free definitely does that. Our reporter Adam Bass has been reporting on the Fare Free WRTA in Worcester that has been doing this a lot longer than the PVTA. They've been doing this since 2020, and it's a big success. But they have to renew this every single year. One of the things that we're looking into is, are they ever going to actually make this permanent? And that's always going to be the question.
Eric Lesser, your eyes lit up on that. Are they ever going to make it permanent?
Well, there is an important, regional equity component to this. It's worth reminding, and I used to enjoy reminding my friends at the State House, that the PVTA is the second largest transit authority in the state, after, of course, the MBTA, which everybody in Massachusetts contributes to every budget cycle. So,
but very few people from Western Massachusetts actually use on a regular basis.
Exactly. So, I think that the state needs to step up here here and say, okay, regional and public transit is a priority everywhere, right? Of course, having a strong MBTA is important for the state as a whole, but so is having a safe, accessible, high-quality public transit in Springfield and Chicopee and Holyoke and all of our rural communities around the region. So this is going to be a big test. There's obviously demand and need here. The pilot has been a success, and I'm very hopeful that not only do they make the pilot permanent, but they start to work on some of these access and quality issues that Aprell brought up, the frequency, the timing, the last mile connectivity, because it really is a very essential lifeline for people to get to work, to get to medical appointments, and there's no alternative, right? If you don't have a car in Western Mass, you can't really walk to a lot of places, so you need that connectivity and you need that transportation option.
And the added challenge to keep looking at too is especially for smaller cities and towns here in Western Mass, things like the Quabog connector out in the Palmer Ware area. Senior centers have a lot of information for people about ways to get free or reduced cost rides. So there is some help out there, even if it's a little bit tricky to navigate. So I would say give your senior center a call for sure. Go ahead very quickly.
I think one thing that was really interesting that's in the article also is how do we get people like me with a car to park and ride. I did that before. Now I park and walk a lot, but parking and riding is something that I used to do all the time and encourage people to do. And I think that we still need to do that, right?
Looking at those incentives.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Still ahead here on The Rundown, a local veteran reflects on Memorial Day and his work in the civil rights movement, and we'll discuss the impact of two pioneering leaders from the 413 who died this week. If you have thoughts, email therundown@nepm.org. You're listening to The Rundown on 88.5 NEPM and streaming live on YouTube. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Rundown here on 88.5 NEPM. I'm Carrie Saldo, joined by journalist Dave Eisenstadter and Aprell May Munford and former state senator Eric Lesser. Let's get back into it. Dave, MassLive has this ongoing reporting project about state and municipal salaries. Just give us a brief summary of some of what you've been finding.
Sure. So it's a payroll database, and we're making searchable dozens of state departments and municipalities of what their payroll records are, and really just making data that's already public more accessible, searchable, so that you can find out who's making what in the state and municipalities. And we found some interesting stuff. Do you know who the highest paid worker is in the state?
I do not.
Okay, so it's Frank Martin, the UMass men's basketball coach.
Wow.
About 2.2 million.
And so what's your hope with MassLive making this information available to the public?
Yeah, well, so it's the journalistic mission. We're providing a more informed public, and we're kind of reporting on these trends in the state in particular. The number of workers 3 years ago who were making $250K or more was about 650. Now 3 years later, it's about 1,000. So it's growing. And we're making that information available.
All right. Well, there'll be a full link to all the reporting in our show notes. It's obviously also available on MassLive, so people can go and dig in and see who's making what. Aprell, you took a look this week, the headline, at 90, a Selma marcher and Air Force veteran in Amherst reflects on lost friends and fading civil rights. Memorial Day was Monday, honoring those who died serving in the United States. And you interviewed this veteran who reflected on the friends that he has lost. How did you learn about Rafael Lopez Sanchez?
Rafael Lopez Sanchez contacted me through the Holyoke mayor's office.
So I've got a story for you.
He did, and he really wanted me. We met over 3 days, and he really, really wanted to get this message out that he's seeing all the work that he and his friends put in kind of fade away, and he wanted to make a call to action to all young people and those who are thinking about joining the military, those that are in the military, to hold up these freedoms that he holds so dearly.
Yeah, and something you wrote that really struck me. Despite his age, Lopez Sanchez continues to read, research, speak out, urging younger generations to study history, understand their rights, and take action. And then he told you, quote, "We've lost symmetry in the government," he said. "The reason we're here is because we don't know how much power we have." Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Eric, Dave, looking at Memorial Day that was upon us this week, or reflections on this piece by Aprell?
It was a great piece and a really great perspective to get out there. I'm just so glad that that's out there. And the quote that really stuck with me is he's talking about people lost their lives and we're watching these protections disappear. So really those erosions of the civil rights that he's talking about that he fought for over the course of a very long life.
I mean, when he's telling this story, there are tears in his eyes, right? Mm-hmm. Flying over to Detroit to attend this funeral of his friend who was a mother of 4, and being terrified by the night riders coming in, throwing Molotov cocktails in the place, burning a cross, and then just to see all of this erosion. And he's very, very active as a helper of veterans. He goes in, some guy was looking for water, he's like, "I'll take you to the faucet." He knows everybody there. He's really active, and he really means what he says, and he really holds these things dearly.
All right, well, now into 2 remembrances. The death of 2 well-known leaders who impacted the Springfield area and beyond. Benjamin Swan and Henry Thomas III both died this week within hours of each other on Monday. The Springfield Republican Stephanie Barry reported on Swan's death saying, quote, "He marched at Selma and took the civil rights battle to Springfield. Former state representative Benjamin Swan died Monday at 92. His community is mourning." Many who knew him said he advocated for equality in the spirit of Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., with whom he stood shoulder to shoulder on the March on Washington in 1963. Swan was a state representative in the city's 11th Hamden district from 1994 to 2016, but many in politics say his reach extended far beyond his district. Eric, your time starting in the legislature, kind of tail end touched onto Benjamin Swan's. What will you remember about him?
Yeah, no, so it's a very, very sad moment for the community to lose two icons. I knew them both, was close with them both, and I was starting my career when Rep. Swan was kind of winding down his time in the legislature, and I would say it was a great honor. It was really working alongside someone who really embodied a huge portion of modern American history, but was very firmly rooted in Springfield and in Western Mass. And Rep. Swan was most well known for his civil rights work and his civil rights activism, but he was a very savvy and canny operator on Beacon Hill, and he was a big champion of public transportation. We were just talking about the PVTA. I was thinking about some memories I have of Rep. Swan pushing for funding for the PVTA, and he was a very savvy operator at bringing resources back to not only his community in Springfield, but the broader region. He worked in partnership with the whole Western Mass delegation, someone I learned a lot from and will miss.
Some of the things he did here in Springfield, he was the president of the Greater NAACP for a decade before he was elected to public office in 1994. Former Mayor Albano credits him for really helping to bring some police reform to the Springfield Police Department. Department in the 90s. He increased diversity there. Education was a huge priority for him, too. He was a lifelong learner, and I did not know, but he studied art and before he went into politics. So it was really fantastic to learn that bit about his creative side.
He was a bit of like a polymath, I think is the term. Yeah, like, he knew a lot about music, about art, certainly about history, politics. It was just... He was fun to talk to. He was fun to learn from, and someone I'll certainly miss.
And here's how Jim Kinney reflected on Henry M. Thomas III. He was the youngest president and CEO of the Urban League movement, taking over the Springfield chapter in 1974. Thomas, who went on to lead the civil rights organization for a half a century and became the first person of color to chair the University of Massachusetts Board of Trustees. He died on Monday as well, as we said. He was 77. A Springfield native, he was also an attorney and an instrumental in many programs to help area residents, including the reopening of North Brookfield's Camp Atwater in the 1980s. It was the first and oldest Black-owned and operated summer camp in the United States. And there was a headline in the Republican from 2015, an editorial that said Thomas exemplifies dignity in service. You said you knew him as well.
Yeah, very, very close to Henry. Henry was one of my first phone calls when I ran for office back in 2014. I mean, he was and is a power player. He was someone you wanted to talk to and wanted to get advice from. He really was instrumental in getting the UMass campus set up in downtown Springfield.
It's named for him now.
Exactly, yeah, which I was very happy to see. And Camp Atwater was a project of his for decades, and simply would not have happened and would not be there without him. One just, if it's okay, story about Henry that I think shows the kind of person he is. I was down in Washington, D.C. This was several years ago. I had a meeting with former President Obama, and I was coming out of that meeting, and Vernon Jordan was in the lobby. He was, of course, going to be in the meeting after me, a little bit of a higher level meeting, but President Obama turned to Mr. Jordan. This was when he was alive. This was several years ago, and said, this is a former staffer of mine, Eric Lesser, who's a state senator in Western Mass. And before President Obama even finished his sentence, Vernon Jordan turned to me and said, "Oh, my friend Henry Thomas, runs the chapter in Springfield." So Henry was a big deal, and moved in a lot of big circles. But he was so firmly committed and rooted to his local community, and to the people of Springfield and of the wider region. A real icon. And just connecting it back to Aprell's article about really a passing generation and a passing movement. What's incumbent on us now to keep that memory and that work alive?
Yeah, Aprell, what are you thinking?
I think if we look at all three of these incredible people, we can see that they have lots of character and lots of legacy. And I think that we see that development happening in those marches and those civil rights protests in the 60s that really not only fought for voting rights, but really helped develop leaders to come back into these areas such as Springfield and really champion public policy, champion education rights, champion the things that we need, and also living by example. And I think that's what we really need to keep in mind. And also that this is a lifelong journey, right? And we need to continue the fight, continue their legacy. They left a blueprint for us, and we just need to follow the map.
Maurice Poe, who spoke, he's the league's board chair, he said this of Thomas upon Thomas's retirement: "The greatest legacy one can pass on is not one of material things, but one of character and leadership." And he added that Thomas was an impeccable example of both. All right, on to our Scoops, Praise, and Prediction portion of the show, where I ask you to give us a little bit of a story you're working on, heap some praise on something you saw in the news, or just give us a little bit about what's on your mind. Dave Eisenstadter, I'll start with you.
Okay, sort of a scoop and a praise. So it's nice today. This weekend, it's going to snow on Mount Washington.
What?
So Louise Fieldman on MassLive.com has a great piece about why it can actually be more dangerous to hike the White Mountains in the spring than in the winter because you're less prepared and you don't think about the fact that it's going to snow on Mount Washington all the way through May.
I love
Depressing.
Western Massachusetts. Eric Lesser, what's on your mind?
Somber note, but I wanted to add also just a shout out and memorial to Judge Leroy, who is another icon of the local community here, who also passed away this week. Judge Leroy grew up in Haiti in difficult circumstances. He made his way to Harvard Law School, and for decades was a distinguished judge here in Springfield, and will be missed.
Aprell.
Follow me for more to find out why an apartment building on High Street in Holyoke was condemned by the Public Health Department, leaving dozens on the streets.
Wow. I have praise this week. Graduation season is upon us. I was at a graduation at Springfield Technical Community College last night. My husband was among the graduating class, but really just congratulations to all the graduates, high school, college out there. It's complicated and challenging times, as we talked about around the table today. There is still hope in the world, and the fact that you persevered is proof of that. You've been listening to The Rundown here on 88.5 NEPM. I'm Carrie Saldo. My thanks to Dave Eisenstadter, Eric Lesser, and Aprell May Munford. Thanks for watching on YouTube and listening here on 88.5. Go out and make it a fantastic Friday. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, bye.